My mother called me her greatest blessing at every birthday until I turned 12. At 13, my sister was born. And somewhere between that birthday and the day I turned 18, I became invisible. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because I want you to understand the exact landscape I was standing in the day my father's estate lawyer called me into his office and slid a document across the desk. The document was 4 pages long. My name appeared exactly once on the final page. Next to the words, no designated share, my father's estate was valued at $1.4 million. My sister received the house, both investment accounts, and a trust fund that would pay out over 10 years. I received a voicemail from my mother the day after the reading. She said, and I quote, "We always knew you were the strong one. You don't need it like she does." I listened to that voicemail 3 times. The first time I cried. The second time I got angry. The third time, I pressed save. Because I already knew what was coming. My name is Serena, and this is the story of how my family gave away everything they thought would keep me dependent on them, and how that turned out to be the best thing they ever did for me. I need to take you back before the inheritance, before the lawyer's office, and the document and the voicemail. I need you to understand the family I grew up in, because nothing that happened later makes sense without it. My father, Robert, was a contractor. He built things, houses, extensions, commercial units, for 30 years. He was not flashy about money. He was careful with it, disciplined. He believed in working hard and leaving something behind for your children. My mother, Carol, had never worked a full-time job. She managed the home, managed the finances, managed the social calendar. She was warm, the kind of warm that fills a room and makes strangers feel like family. But there were 2 versions of Carol, the version the world saw, and the version that came home. I was the oldest child. For 12 years, it was just me. And those 12 years were genuinely good. I have real memories of being loved, of bedtime stories, of my dad taking me to construction sites on weekends, letting me wear his hard hat, pretending I was the boss. I have memories of my mother teaching me to cook, letting me stay up late on Fridays, singing in the car on long drives. Those memories are real. I want to be precise about that, because what came later didn't erase them. It just put them in a new context. My sister Melissa was born when I was 13. And I want to be honest, I adored her. I wanted so excited. I was the first person at the hospital besides my dad. I held her the day she was born, and I thought, this is the best thing that's ever happened to our family. I still believe that about Melissa. It's my parents' response to Melissa that I have a problem with, because what happened over the next 5 years wasn't love distributed differently. It was love redirected entirely. By the time I was 16, the pattern was clear. Melissa's school events, my parents were both there, front row. My school events, Dad if he wasn't working, Mom if she felt like it. Melissa's health appointments, booked immediately, never missed. My health issues, you're strong, you'll be fine. Melissa's university fund, started when she was born, added to every year. My university plans, you're smart, you'll figure it out. Get a loan. I got a loan. I worked part-time through 3 years of a business degree. I graduated with honors. My parents came to the graduation. They took a photo of me in my gown. Then they left early because Melissa had to dance recital. She was 9. I drove home alone that night. And I made myself a quiet promise. I will build something of my own, and I will never need anything from them. I kept that promise. What I didn't know was that they were building something too. After graduation, I moved to another city, started working at a mid-size marketing agency, worked my way up, learned everything I could, saved aggressively. By 27, I had been promoted twice and had a small amount in savings that felt to me like genuine security. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. And stable, when you've grown up on the edges of your own family, feels like the most radical thing in the world. I met my partner James at 28. He was steady, quiet in the way that felt safe, not distant. He knew my history within the first 3 months, Sratsans, not because I overshared, but because I'm not interested in building something with someone who doesn't know what they're walking into. He said, after I finished explaining to my family, "So you basically raised yourself from 16." I thought about it. I said, "Yeah, pretty much." He said, "You should be proud of that. Nobody had ever said that to me before." During those years, I maintained, and I use that word deliberately, a relationship with my family. I called on birthdays. I visited at Christmas, not because things were warm, but because I believe in trying, and because Melissa's my sister, was still someone I loved. She had grown into a woman I genuinely liked. She was funny, self-aware. She had, somewhere along the way, developed her own quiet guilt about how things had been between us. Not guilt she expressed often, but guilt I could see in the way she sometimes looked at me. Like she understood something our parents didn't. We didn't talk about it directly. But we both knew. My father's health started declining when I was 31, heart issues, then a second event. Then a slow deterioration that lasted 18 months. I flew home 4 times during that period, took time off work, sat with him in hospitals, not because I expected anything from it, but because he was my father. And when someone you love is dying, the complexity of what they did or didn't do becomes temporarily less important than simply being present. My mother barely acknowledged those visits. She was focused on Melissa, who was not coping well. My father died in the spring of my 32nd year. I held his hand. My mother was on the other side of the bed. Melissa was in the hallway. The lawyer's office was 3 weeks later. I want to be careful here, because I've thought about this moment many times, and I want to be accurate about how I felt. When the lawyer, a man named Gerald, who had the practiced neutrality of someone who has delivered devastating news many times, began reading the will, I already had a sense of what was coming. Not because anyone had told me, but because of what my mother had said in the weeks before my father died. Small things, offhand comments that individually meant nothing. Together they formed a picture. "Melissa, it really depends on this house. You've always been so good with money, Serena. Your father always said you were the one who didn't need looking after." These weren't conversations. They were instructions for how I was supposed to receive what was coming. The house, primary residence, valued at $620,000, was left to Melissa. Both investment accounts, totaling approximately $460,000, were left to Melissa. A trust fund, generating quarterly payments for 10 years, was left to Melissa. There was a paragraph about me. It acknowledged that I was Robert's daughter. It stated that my father was confident in my independence and resilience, and it named me as the beneficiary of his personal effects, specifically his collection of tools and a box of photographs. I received tools and photographs. I looked at Gerald. He looked at me. He said very quietly, "I'm sorry." Not a legal phrase, a human one. My mother did not look at me. She was watching Melissa, who was crying softly across the table. I did not cry. I picked up my copy of the document. I thanked Gerald. I walked out to my car. I sat in the car for 20 minutes. And then I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, ordered the largest thing on the menu, opened my laptop, and called James. James asked me how I was. I said, "I'm fine." "I need you to help me think," he said. "Tell me everything." I did. And then at the end, I said something that surprised even me. I said, this was the right outcome. I just needed to understand that it was intentional before I decided what to do next. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What do you mean intentional?" I said, "This wasn't about Melissa. This was about me. My mother has spent 20 years trying to make sure I stay in a position where I need them. And my father, whether he knew it fully or not, helped her do it. This will was the last move in a very long game, and now I know the rules. After the lawyer's office, I made a decision. I went no contact, not dramatically, no announcement, no letter, no final confrontation. I simply stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped being available. It is a strange thing, going silent on people who never really listened anyway, but it was necessary, because I needed a year to build without their energy in my space. I want to be honest. The first 3 months were harder than I expected. Not because I missed my parents, though there's always grief in admitting that a relationship isn't what it should have been, But because silence, when you've spent your whole life trying to earn visibility, feels almost unbearable at first, you keep expecting someone to notice. You keep waiting for the phone call that says, "We see you, we're sorry." That call doesn't come. And then one day, somewhere around month 4, you stop waiting for it. And something extraordinary happens. You realize how much energy you were spending on that hope. How much bandwidth had been quietly consumed by the project of being seen by people who had decided not to see you. When that energy came back to me, I used it. By month 6, I had launched my own consultancy. 3 clients in the first month, 6 by month 4. James and I got engaged at the end of that year, a Tuesday morning, coffee on the counter. He proposed and said, "I don't want a single Tuesday without you." I said yes before he finished the sentence. The year of silence was the most productive year of my life. And then, precisely 11 months after the lawyer's office, my mother called. The voicemail was 47 seconds long. My mother sounded different, not broken. My mother doesn't break, but diminished, like something that had been holding her at a certain height had been quietly removed. She said Melissa was in trouble. She said the house needed repairs that were beyond what the estate could cover. She said she had been managing alone for a year, and it was too much. She said, "I know you're busy with your life, but family is family, Serena. Family is family." Those 3 words. I have thought about those 3 words many, many times since. Family is family, meaning there is a debt here that has nothing to do with what I gave you or didn't give you, meaning the biological connection alone is currency I can spend. I did not call back that day. I called Melissa instead. Melissa answered on the first ring. There was a pause. Then she said, "You heard the voicemail." I said, "Tell me what's actually happening." And Melissa, who had spent her whole life being protected from real information, told me everything. The house had structural issues. A surveyor had flagged them before the estate was fully settled, but my mother had chosen not to disclose them in the will process. The repair estimate was nearly $90,000. Melissa had not been managing her money well, not through malice, through inexperience. Nobody had ever taught her. She had been given a trust fund, but no literacy to go with it. She had also, and this is the part that made me sit down, found drafts of the will, multiple drafts. The first draft, written 5 years before my father's death, divided the estate equally between us. The second draft adjusted the split to 60-40 in Melissa's favor. The final version, the one Gerald read, gave Melissa everything. Each revision was requested by my mother. Melissa said, "Serena, I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know how it changed." I believed her. I sat on my kitchen floor, not because I was destroyed, but because sometimes the confirmation of a thing you already knew is still a physical experience. After a long moment, I said, "Thank you for telling me the truth." She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Nothing dramatic. I'm just going to be clear." I called my mother back the next morning, not out of obligation, out of a decision. "There is a difference," she answered quickly. There was relief in her voice. She said, "Serena, I'm so glad you called." I said, "I'm sure you are." Brief silence. I said, "Mom, I'm going to say something and I want you to let me finish before you respond." She said, "Of course." I said, "I know about the 3 drafts. I know the timeline. I know what changed and I know who changed it." Silence. I'm not angry. I've had a year to work through what I'm going to tell you now. So please, just listen. You spent 20 years telling me I was the strong one, the capable one, the one who didn't need looking after. And then you used that framing to justify giving me nothing, because if I'm strong, I don't need it. But here's what you missed, Mom. You made me strong, and then you tried to use my strength as a reason to take from me. That is not a compliment. That is a system. My mother was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was smaller. She said, I always thought you'd be fine." I said, "I know, and I am, but not because of you, in spite of you. Now, you called because you need help. I'm going to tell you what I'm willing to do and what I'm not. I will not give you money. I will not co-sign anything. I will not be a financial resource for a family that made a specific and documented choice to exclude me from its resources. What I will do, what I'm choosing to do, because Melissa is my sister and I love her, is help her find a professional who can advise her on the trust and the house. I'll make one introduction. That's what I have to offer. Take it or don't. My mother, that's all? I said, that's everything. I want to tell you what happened after that call. Not because the ending is dramatic. It isn't. I made the introduction for Melissa. She found a financial advisor she trusted. She is managing. Melissa and I speak regularly now. Not as two people orbiting the same broken center, but as two adults who chose each other when they didn't have to. That is the relationship I always wanted with my sister. It took everything falling apart to get it. My mother and I are in what I would call a maintained distance. Not no contact, not close, civil, occasional. On my terms, I don't carry rage about her. Rage is expensive, and I'm very careful about what I spend. My consultancy now has 22 clients. I've hired my first full-time employee. James and I got married last spring. Small ceremony, people who had earned the right to be there. At the reception, Melissa gave a speech. She said, "My sister taught me that the people who build things for themselves, quietly, without applause, those are the people worth watching." I'm lucky I got to watch. I had to look at the ceiling, just for a moment. Here is what I want to say to anyone who is watching this, recognizing their own story. Being the strong one is not a destiny. It is a label people put on you when they want to take something from you without feeling guilty about it. "You'll be fine" is not a compliment. It is permission they are giving themselves. And here is the truth they don't tell you. You can be strong. You can rebuild. You can build something so solid and so yours that no document, no revision, no last-minute betrayal can touch it. But you are also allowed to be angry first. You are allowed to grieve the family you deserved. You are allowed to sit on the kitchen floor for a moment and feel the weight of it. Then get up and build. The tools my father left me are sitting on a shelf in my office. I kept them, not because they were what I was owed, but because they remind me that what he gave me, without intending to, was the blueprint. I just had to be the one to build from it. My name is Serena, and I am still standing. If any part of Serena's story felt familiar, if you've ever been the strong one in a family that used your strength against you, drop the word blueprint in the comments. Because you built yourself, and that is worth saying out loud. If you're new here, this is Family Drama Diaries. Every week we share real stories of betrayal, survival, and the quiet, powerful act of choosing yourself. Subscribe. We'll be here. And next week, my mother-in-law secretly recorded every conversation in my house for 3 years. The moment I found out changed everything. You don't want to miss that.